All right, Matthew 2, we're through the genealogy part. Now we're getting into the story, which is exciting. So, yeah, I'm just gonna read again, and then afterwards I will just share some thoughts. Matthew 2, now after Jesus was born in Bethlehem of Judea in the days of Herod the king, behold, Magi from the east arrived in Jerusalem, saying, Where is he who has been born King of the Jews? For we saw his star in the east and have come to worship him. When Herod the king heard this, he was troubled, and all Jerusalem with him. And gathering together all the chief priests and scribes of the people, he inquired of them where the Messiah was to be born. They said to him, In Bethlehem of Judea, for this is what has been written by the prophet. And you, Bethlehem, land of Judah, are by no means least among the leaders of Judah. For from you will come forth a ruler who will shepherd my people Israel. Then Herod secretly called for the Magi and determined from them the exact time the star appeared. And he sent them to Bethlehem and said, Go and search carefully for the child, and when you have found him, report to me, so that I too may come and worship him. After hearing the king, they went on their way, and behold, the star which they had seen in the east went on ahead of them until it came to a stop over the place where the child was to be found. When they saw the star, they rejoiced exceedingly with great joy. And after they came into the house, they saw the child with his mother Mary, and they fell down and worshipped him. Then they opened their treasures and presented to him gifts of gold, frankincense, and myrrh. And after being warned by God in a dream not to return to Herod, the Magi left for their own country by another way. Now, when they had gone, behold, an angel of the Lord appeared to Joseph in a dream and said, Get up, take the child and his mother and flee to Egypt, and stay there until I tell you, for Herod is going to search for the child to kill him. So Joseph got up and took the child and his mother while it was still night, and left for Egypt. He stayed there until the death of Herod. This happened so that what had been spoken by the Lord through the prophet would be fulfilled. Out of Egypt I called my son. Yeah. Something really stood out to me there. I was just thinking about it now. Then when Herod saw that he had been tricked by the Magi, he became very enraged and sent men and killed all the boys who were in Bethlehem and all its vicinity who were 2 years old or under, according to the time which he had determined from the Magi. Then what had been spoken through Jeremiah the prophet was fulfilled. A voice was heard in Ramah, weeping and great mourning. Rachel weeping for her children, and she refused to be comforted because they were no more. But when Herod died, behold, an angel of the Lord appeared in a dream to Joseph in Egypt and said, Get up, take the child and his mother and go to the land of Israel, for those who sought the child's life are dead. So Joseph got up, took the child and his mother and came into the land of Israel. But when he heard that Archelaus was reigning over Judea in place of his father Herod, he was afraid to go there. Then after being warned by God in a dream, he left for the regions of Galilee. Then after being warned by God in a dream, he left for the regions of Galilee and came and settled in a city called Nazareth. This happened so that what was spoken through the prophets would be fulfilled. He will be called a Nazarene. Amazing. Okay, first thing, this isn't maybe something that I felt God speak to me about, but in the NASB, it calls the wise men Magi, and it gives a footnote, a cast of educated men specializing in astronomy, astrology, and natural science. I think this is like the correct way to say it, but I know, I don't think any of the translations I've read have said it, have called them Magi. But if I'm correct, it's very interesting because I don't think they were Jews. I think they were pagans, but I might be wrong with that, right? So it's just super cool that God speaks to them about the Messiah. Men of the East, who are not even God's people. But I might be wrong, so I'm just saying that. Anyway, so the first thing that was really cool for me when reading this was just the fact that they call him the King of the Jews. Where would they get this language, right? And it's just this image of Jesus coming to be the king of the Jewish people and the king of the world, right? Because I'm a Gentile and Jesus is my king. But he's coming to rule and to reign. But it looks way different than what people expect, right? Jesus was basically enthroned on a cross, right? He was crowned on a cross, which just completely turns upside down the idea that the world has of what it means to be a leader. Because Jesus came as the perfect leader and king, and yet he suffered and died for those he loved. Anyway, that's like a tangent, but it's just amazing. And they also come to worship him, right? Now, if you read the Bible, you realize that worshiping anyone else but God is wrong, right? Angels, that when people like see angels, sometimes they want to worship them because they're so glorious, and then they're like, no, don't worship me, like worship God, right? So it's so cool that in the Bible it speaks about how these men are coming and they want to worship Jesus, which shows us again that Jesus is God in the flesh. He is not a mere man. He's not a wise man. He's not just an anointed man. He is God himself. Again, it says in verse 11 that they fell down and worshipped him, right? And then I saw there's a little note, and it says they prostrated themselves, lay face down in a prone position to indicate worship. Like they are worshiping the king right now, right? It's not just a normal man or an anointed man. They are worshiping God himself in the flesh. So I think something that was cool for me from Matthew 2 was the fact that there's so much divine guidance in this chapter of how God is like leading Joseph and Mary with Jesus divinely. Even the wise men, right? He gives him dreams. He gives him guidance to go and fulfill his purposes. And I really believe in that. I really believe that God gives us guidance to walk in obedience, right? In my own life, like God has led me so faithfully, like a shepherd, and he has really given me guidance to what decisions I should make. And it just makes life so fun. But like literally, like when Joseph got married, imagine the fears and the stuff that came into his heart, right? Of, man, what are people gonna think? How is this gonna work? My to-be wife is pregnant. I didn't make her pregnant. She's not supposed to be pregnant. What is happening? This is weird. Yet he obeyed God, right? And I think the point that I'm trying to make is that when we obey God, he will take care of us. Like we don't have to be scared, right? The first step for Joseph was to listen to God and stay with Mary, don't divorce her, and to raise this kid, Jesus, as his own, because I believe he did that, right? Nothing says otherwise. But that would be challenging, right? That would be really challenging. Yet when he obeyed God, God continued to guide and lead him, right? Now, I think in my own life, how I take that is that I don't have to be scared to obey God in the face of many challenges, in the face of stuff that, you know, people can sometimes in the natural, they can give you a lot of advice and wisdom to like, bro, you shouldn't do this because of X, Y, Z. You know, if Joseph told me his story, I would have been like, bro, this is weird. Like, you should get up, you know? And I think that people sometimes can, from the experiences that they've had in their lives, they can use the wisdom that they've built up, which isn't bad, right? I'm not saying it's bad, but they can use that wisdom to kind of try and figure out life. But God's voice is often very disruptive and like disruptive to our comfort, and often it calls us out of our comfort zones, right? And we need to be willing to let God's voice disrupt our lives, and it's worth it. That's the point that I'm trying to make. Like, Joseph obeyed God, and it was a challenging situation, But then just look at how God continues to guide them and lead them, right? Like going to Egypt, he didn't even know he was fulfilling a prophecy, but God led them to go to Egypt. Then he told them when to come back. Then he told them where specifically to go to Nazareth, right? Like different types of stuff. God even leads the Magi so that they don't go back to Herod and expose where Joseph and Mary is, right? So it's like a very basic kind of thing to take out of this piece of scripture, but there's so much divine guidance in Matthew 2, and we can just be so confident that when we obey God and when we're doing His will, He will take care of us. He will lead us. He will guide us. Like, we don't have to be scared. We don't have to be scared to where He is leading us, or to if He's gonna forsake us in the midst of challenges. So yeah, I guess that's something that really stood out for me from Matthew 2.